Hi, good morning, folks. Good morning, good afternoon soon. My name is Amit Levy. Let me see how this works. Yep. I'm Executive Vice President of Solution Strategy at Made4Net. Made4Net is a supply chain execution software vendor that specializes in warehouse management systems and some complementary solutions in the area of distribution and last mile delivery. I am here to speak today about the mastermind of micro-fulfillment centers, which is really about the technology and the software that's running those micro-fulfillment centers. And I'll talk a little bit about the industry, a little bit about what drives that need for micro-fulfillment centers. And then I'll talk a little bit about the technologies and finish it off with a couple of case studies, just to give a sense of how those things are done. Hopefully you're not going to be too bored, and enjoy. So micro-fulfillment centers are really a result of a need that comes from retail, right? So we have our retailers that, sell products in traditionally in these stores, and I'll talk a little bit about the evolution of the industry. And then we have consumers, and the requirement, the needs from the consumer is really what drives that, that new strategy. And I'll talk about what the micro-fulfillment strategy is. When we look at, historically, back in the 70s, retail, traditionally grew up in stores, right? So we have stores that customers go into the store, they shop for products, and then the distributors, the wholesale distributors, the vendors, they drive the product into the stores, right? So no middleware there, just driving the product directly into the store, organizing the shelf, and so on and so forth. A little bit later, the DC world came into play, and vendors and retailers starting setting up DCs. Retailers, for the most part, starting building DCs, distribution centers that then fulfill to the stores. So, it created some kind of a hybrid of DSD, which is direct store delivery, all the way to, setting some of the products from a distribution center. So, the retailer had the vision of lowering costs of the product, and then by that, driving more profitability to the stores, and they bring some of those costs down from the vendor just by being able to, save them cost in transportation, right? Instead of bringing the product to the stores and multiple stores, just bring it to the DC and we'll take it from there. DCs are traditionally based, 50, 70 miles, 100 miles out of the main distribution area, which are, again, the stores. And, when you look across the country and in other places in the world, it's the same strategy. You set up large DCs in a good junction or a cross path of highways, which gives you good access, fast access to the retail stores. But it keeps product, when we look a little bit into the e-commerce, it's very far from the end customer. So again, there's a need by the end customer to have access to the stores. In the 90s, we see more import centers that feed into distribution centers, and that brings us into the mid-90s, where Amazon was founded. For those of you who don't remember, Amazon was founded in 1994 by Jeff Bezos. Started as a book e-commerce platform for selling books, right? You could buy books online. A few years later, they went into CDs. And by the way, the vision of Bezos, and I'm going to talk multiple, you're going to hear the word Amazon here today multiple times, because I think they really shaped the industry where it pertains to e-com and micro-fulfillment centers. So, Bezos had the vision of having a store that sells all products. Everything that you can buy, you can find in the Amazon world. So that really created a new era of e-commerce and online shopping and so on. And from a supply chain standpoint, it created or it increased the presence of parcel hubs and sortation centers that really are used as some kind of a middleman, for a lack of a better term, between the distribution centers to the final consumer. Those phases still exist, right? I mean, there's a hybrid. If you look at there's still retail brick and mortar stores. There's still customers that are buying online. It's a hybrid of solutions that, at the end of the day, try to satisfy the end customer. So e-commerce is really something that, that's building and progressing and so on. I look at it as, or try to compare at least to the evolution of cell phones. Cell phones were invented back in the mid-'70s, something like that, and then in the early '90s, they started to be a commodity. Everybody could start, buying products off the shelf, cell phones. And a little later, the main change was, encountered when Apple came out with the iPhone in 2007 and really changed the market. Everybody followed them. So I see this as a very similar way of what Amazon did on the e-com market. And I think the main change was somewhere around 2005 when they introduced the Amazon Prime concept, right? Pay $79 for a year, sorry, and you get free deliveries, right? 2 days delivery, and they really came up with that concept. The thing is that they changed the market. They changed the consumer behavior. They changed the way that sellers, distributors, retailers started to think about the market. So this was a major change. The other event that shaped the market and helped make it much more progress and innovative was the past 2 years, the pandemic. COVID has really changed the behavior of consumers and what their expectations are, what their shopping behavior is. If we look at 5-10 years ago, a lot of people did online shopping, but then again, it was, brick and mortar was still the leading shopping experience. In today's world, you see a lot of customers that, learned how to work with their computers, learned how to work with their cell phones. Technology has also contributed to that in the sense of, applications that are supported on the phone and allow you to do more online shopping. So looking a little bit at numbers, let me make sure I didn't skip one yet. Looking a little bit at numbers, 72% of the customers, this is all based on surveys that were done by IBM, other research firms. 70% of the consumers consider 2-day availability as something that they factor in when they shop. By the way, again, the 2-day delivery came from that Amazon Prime concept, still dictating the standards and service where it pertains to today's market. 41% of the consumers think that the fast shipping or the service level where it pertains to shipping, including handling returns, is also something that drives their experience and relation to brand and retail. And then the last thing here is that 90% of the customers, 90% of the retailers really look up to what Amazon is doing and admit that they're having a hard time to emulate their efficiency. Going back to the consumer, the expectations today from an SLA, and I'm talking about deliveries and expectations on service and so on, it all ties back to the micro-fulfillment topic, and we'll get there in a minute. So the 24-hour experience is something, or 24-hour delivery experience is something that really drives consumer behavior. 56% of the customer expect to get products in 24 hours. 61% are willing to pay extra to get that service level, right? When you look at the, what customers consider fast delivery, 10 years ago, you would order something and you get it in a week. Wow, that's great. That's really fast, right? Today, if you don't get it in 24 hours, you're disappointed. That didn't meet my expectation. And then 49% are also, taking that in consideration. So they go and buy in specific places, specific, e-com or marketplaces or any type of online store based on the delivery. The last thing here, on the last note here is really interesting, and that talks about the percentage of customers that start shopping and they abandon their shopping cart because they understand they're not going to get it in a reasonable time. So, right? So you don't know when you get the product when you start shopping, unless you go into Amazon or another platform that you're used to buying in. But really says something about their behavior and their expectations as it pertains to the delivery. So this creates a gap. It creates a gap between what the customer is expecting, the consumer, what they're expecting, and what the retailer is able to deliver. And it takes, we take into consideration that the furthest the product is from the end consumer, the more challenging it is to meet their expectation, because at the end of the day, we need to get the order, we need to pick it, we need to pack it, ship it, deliver it to the customer, and we want to do this in the shortest amount of time to meet their expectations. How do we do that? We can pick from the store, right? So if you go into any grocery retailer and you say, I want to place an order, put aside, Whole Foods Market right now, or Amazon Fresh, that are basically using the same platform. But any other retail, you'll be disappointed if you go in and get the order and it's not going to arrive at the same day. And again, COVID created a huge set of expectation there, because customers didn't want to go to the store and they had to go online to shop to have the products delivered to their front door. So some of the retailers today, you're looking at the retailers, and this is an example, one of our customers that's using our system to drive their distribution centers. It's a grocery retailer called Cardenas out of the Los Angeles area. They started implementing now, online shopping, and they're using Instacart. So I'm assuming everybody knows what Instacart is. It's a service. You place an order, right? They can connect to, it's a platform that can connect to any retailer. They go and place an order, and then someone, a human being, goes to the store, picks it for them, and delivers it to the customer. That's great, but a lot of costs, more expensive to the end consumer. They're paying a premium for that service, which in other places they're not going to be necessarily need to pay. So one of the strategies that retailers come up with is doing handling the requirement of the customers or the expectations of the customers by setting up micro-fulfillment centers. So what is a micro-fulfillment center? First of all, we all relate to a micro-fulfillment as a building or a facility. That is not necessarily the case. It's more of a strategy. It's a strategy for the retailer to keep up with the customer's expectation, okay? And that strategy drives their supply chain, their planning, their procurement, transportation, everything. And we see today that a lot of retailers go with that strategy, build that strategy as part of their supply chain. The micro-fulfillment center is, at the end of the day, a small distribution center. It's a small warehouse. And that small warehouse is able to fulfill the objective of that micro-fulfillment center is to do a fast delivery, to meet the customer's experience and to be able to get them the products that they ordered in the expected time frame, right? So, whether it's 2 days, 24 hours, and so on. Those are usually small facilities, anywhere between 5,000 square foot to 25,000 square foot facilities. They're located in the central, very close to the customer. So if you take the, Los Angeles metropolitan area, a retailer that wants to be able to set up micro-fulfillment centers would probably have to, build them in a 10, 15, 20 miles radius of their distribution area because they want to be able, again, to do it fast. And the technology that's supported or that supports those micro-fulfillment centers they vary. It could be a very manual micro-fulfillment centers, which is driven by, by a store, which is called, just fulfilling the orders from the back store or from the actual retail store floor. Could be a dark store. A dark store is similar to a retail store, just you don't have people, consumers walking in with shopping carts and picking items from the shelf, but you have employees that pick from it. There could be a standalone building, and a standalone building that is able to really handle those orders in a fast manner. So it could be a hybrid of manual operations or automated or semi-automated or any combination with that pertains to that to managing that building. The advantages: low costs, fast deliveries. Setting it up is relatively fast. You don't have to, build large buildings and, put a lot of racks and so on and so forth. You go in with a solution that is fairly easy to set up, 8 weeks, and I'll give you an example later towards the end, when I'll talk about the case study. I'll give you an example, a real-world example with a brand that everybody knows and what they did and how that supports this overall strategy. Low cost of labor, because you don't need too much labor, especially if you're putting in automation. And then, you're able to deliver. You're able to deliver to the customer, whether you do a last mile delivery to their home, or the customer comes to pick it up from the store, or they drop it off in a shipping box or something like that. It's very flexible. But again, what drives that is the time to deliver. As far as the market itself, this is a huge market. I mean, from a potential market, analysts are talking, over $35 billion worth by 2030, which is unbelievable. And it really seems like it's going this way, especially when we see the involvement. I mean, you guys are walking here at the floor, right? You see micro-fulfillment center. You see automation everywhere. Look at the automation, the robots, the different type of equipment that vendors here offer to handle these type of operation. It's all over the place. Every other booth, you see some kind of technology that supports that. And the last comment here is that, actually one before the last, is that a lot of it is in the US. So they expect 50% of this to be in the US. And the last point here, and I think this is really important, is that we are going to see a lot of 3PL, logistics service providers, go into this market and service the retailers. They're going to set up facilities. They're going to set up the micro-fulfillment centers in urban distribution areas that would service these retailers, because distributing and doing last mile delivery, that's not the business of a retailer. A retailer needs to focus on selling, right? On doing retail, on selling, buying efficiently, and then let someone else do this. So I definitely envision 3PLs and e-com fulfillment providers to step into that market and lead this industry. So a quick comparison on between what an MFC, a micro fulfillment center, is, and a traditional distribution center. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but size. right? 5 to 25,000 square feet, where a traditional retail distribution center is usually around anywhere between 300,000 to 3 million, depending the variety of the product, and so on and so forth. Delivery. So, you need to be I'm sorry, before that, inventory. How much inventory do I keep in each of those facilities? In a regular standard DC, I can hold inventory, depending on the product, could be even months of inventory, right? Something doesn't have too much of a shelf life because I have enough space. I have a reserve location. In an MFC, it's very limited. Usually we keep inventory 24 to 48 hours, and then we keep filling it in because we have a space constraint. Now, it'll all tie back to the again, the topic of this seminar, which is the Mastermind, which is really the WMS, the software, because there's so many aspects of managing inventory and resources within the facility that we need to take into consideration that all these great solutions here and all these great technologies don't really take care of. They really just move the product. So, we need replenishment, a different type of items. How do you handle large items? How do you handle small items? And then the cost of the distribution, the cost of the last mile. This is where the MFCs are significantly less expensive, and the investment, of course, behind setting something like this up. A huge difference between building a large distribution center to building a small micro-fulfillment centers. So what kind of technologies do we typically see in an MFC? First of all, we need to see a software that manages that. I mean, if you put in a robot or any type of automation that gets the orders from the order management system, it's still limited in its capacity and what it can do, because it's extremely important to have visibility and real-time inventory visibility between the front end of the store, the shopper, the consumer, to what's really available. We don't want customers to order products and then end up not getting it because it's not available in the inventory within the micro-fulfillment centers. So that's one thing. And then, the entire management of the inventory, make sure that there's the proper rotation, make sure the shelf life is managed properly, different type of activities that need to be managed within those. So this is all about the different elements of managing inventory and running that facility as a whole. And then we have different type of automation, and again, goes back to what you can see here on the floor, goods to person. So any one of those, robots, if it's AutoStore or Autobotics or Exotech, Fabric, these are all what's called goods to person, right? You have a person in the facility, they bring the products to them, they pick, pack, ship. As opposed to another approach, which is the AMR, that you'd see them as well in MFCs, are all the mobile robots that just move around in the facility and they support the people. Now, any way you look at it, none of this is 100% automated. There's always people in it. There's always people, and you have to have some kind of collaboration between the automation and the human part of the warehouse. This is just a snapshot of a typical MFC. You can certainly see that there are different components here. Some of it is automated, some of it is manual. At the end, you have the delivery trucks. The design of those solutions is typically done based on the location of it, the type of products, what type of products do we need to pick, how do we handle them, expected volumes, and so on and so forth. The different type of product attributes, does it need to be managed in a temperature-controlled environment? Do you need to manage date and lot? It all depends on the type of product that you need to distribute. And then the storage, the different type of processes that need to take place within the facility. So how does all this come together in terms of synchronizing, orchestrating this entire thing? This is where what we do come into play. Just as an example, you know, a software that is able to run the fulfillment center, execute the work, synchronize all these components. So you have an example here for, you know, just in a facility that has some kind of automation like AutoStore or Exotech, and then you have picking robots, and then you have AMRs that move within the facility. And each one of those technologies components is responsible for something else within the fulfillment centers, right? And then you have some manual intervention as well and manual picking, but it all needs to come together. Everything needs to be picked, packed, and then shipped to the end consumer. So this is where really we talk about the Mastermind, which is the software that runs it. Warehouse management, warehouse execution system. It's all the same when it comes down to the micro-fulfillment centers management. You know, you're looking at the upper tier of the architecture here is about ordering the products, right? So placing the orders, omni-channel support of getting the orders down to the floor. So it could be, you know, you're sitting at home, placing an order from your phone or from your tablet or through a different channel. All goes down to the warehouse software. Then the warehouse software is really the brain. It's the brain in taking that information, taking that order, the blend of items, the different type of requirements, and then dropping it to the floor and giving each part of that order to the relevant piece that is able to execute it on the floor. Could be a person, could be a robot, could be, you know, the handling of products from different zones and then consolidating it. So this is high level. As far as the processes that you would typically see in a micro-fulfillment center, it's not as complex as it is in a traditional distribution center or a warehouse. Excuse me. You know, there are pretty standard processes because it's small, because you have a 24 to 48 hour inventory level. We focus on receiving. We talk about shipping. Storage. Storage is basically put away, right? So, you know, where do I put this product? This product needs to go into the automated warehouse. This needs to go into the, the small bins. These have to go into a refrigerated area. Making those decisions when the product comes in, and you need to be fast. You don't have time to spend in trying to analyze that and so on. You scan it in, you need to know where it goes. Because again, all the automation, all the other components that we talked about, they're all about pushing it out, not putting it in, not managing it in. So the warehouse is the piece that handles all that. Planning. Planning is really about taking the order from the customer or a set of orders and trying to optimize them. So, you know, we're used to dealing with getting orders, picking them, and then let someone else, you know, worry about how do we distribute them. No, in an MFC it's different. And it's different because first you need to consider also the last mile distribution. So when we're talking about last mile distribution, I have hundreds of orders that need to go out within the next 2 hours because I got them now in the last 15 minutes, and they have to be optimized. And part of that engine is a routing engine. We have a routing engine that's part of our system that does optimization to the route. So we know exactly where it needs to go, and you know, we waive the orders based on that. It's not only about the last mile, but also about the planning. So when you execute the orders on the floor, you already want to be efficient in that sense and make sure that what you pick eventually will end up at the same van or the same truck or even at the same Uber, right? Or Lyft that may be able to do that, or any other independent delivery service. So this is something that is extremely important to be efficient on the warehouse floor. And then the next piece is taking all these components that, you know, execute the orders and pick and pack and synchronize it, right? So, you know, we get five items from one system, from an AutoStore system. And again, I keep mentioning AutoStore and Exotech because just because we work with them, so it's my default go-to. But could be any other execution system. They pick those specific items, bring it to an intermediate station, and then the WMS, or the execution system, is the one that's in charge of consolidating all these different pieces for every order and make sure that it's being packed at the end of the process. The next piece is the replenishment. So we have 24 to 48 hours of inventory. We need to make sure that we keep feeding the micro-fulfillment center with inventory so that there is enough inventory to be able to fulfill in the next couple of days. And finally, the actual packing process before it leaves the warehouse. So many methods and ways to audit and pack orders, depends on the items, depends on the different type of business rules. So that's all supported as part of the Mastermind, again, the software. I've pretty much gone through all of that, so I'll just run through this really quick. Again, receiving and storage, make sure they all go into the right place. When we talk about the planning, so I mentioned the routing, getting the orders, routing all these orders based on the different delivery zones, based on the actual delivery address. So we take all that into consideration and optimize it. We do the pick planning, so we execute it, we take that order, we break it down into different components, and as I said before, we synchronize it back when it's done, executed. All these systems are connected, but then there's really one layer that orchestrates all that order, right? I mean, if I send something to one system and another system has a different set of priority, they're not going to end up at the same time at the same place. So we need to make sure that it's all synchronized. What you see here, again, takes into consideration time. Time is very important here to meet the consumer expectation, right? We talked about this at the beginning. It's all about managing expectations and meeting the consumer's expectation where it pertains to the delivery window. And again, just re-articulating what I already said. This is how from a software architecture perspective, this is how a micro-fulfillment center would look, right? You get orders, and again, going back to what I said before about the 3PLs mastering this industry and taking more proactive leadership in this, this is how it would look. They'll be able to support the Amazons of the world, the Walmarts, any retailer that would want to have that capability of doing fast delivery will need this technology, whether direct or whether it's through a 3PL. So this brings us to the end. I'm really going to just give you a quick 30 seconds to see. This is a commercial that was on Super Bowl night. Uber Eats had that, I think it was for the first time they came up with this commercial. You're going to see this in a second, and then I'll tell you why I'm showing this, okay? So let me make sure that it works. It does work.
Wait, if it was delivered with Uber Eats, does that mean I can eat it?
It says eat.
It's a diaper. This tastes bad.
This candle tastes funny.
I couldn't eat it.
Not bad, but funny.
And thanks to Uber Eats, we don't even know what food is anymore.
This isn't food.
We can't eat most of this.
Yeah, we can't eat any of this.
Why Uber Eats? Why Uber Eats? That bag's a liar.
Yeah, I just got so excited.
All right, great. So I don't know if any of you saw this on Super Bowl night, but this is part of the Uber Eats' new strategy for selling grocery products. So, they started with cars, right? We all use Uber here and Lyft when we arrive to the show, leave the show. Then they took a different step in building the Uber Freight business. A couple of years ago, they acquired a company in billions of dollars, Transplace, just to support their supply chain transportation business. And now what they're doing is they're getting into the grocery industry business. And what you saw here in the commercial is really a message saying you can use your Uber app to start buying groceries. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because we work with Uber. They chose us as their execution platform and the micro-fulfillment centers. And in the pilot they're running now, and it's actually already more than a pilot, we set up a pilot DC. It was done in Tokyo in Japan. They set up about a 5,000 square foot facility that has a certain amount, hundreds of products that they started selling through their app. The WMS, and this is really the classic example of a very simple micro-fulfillment center. Right now, no automation. It'll get there. They'll get there to the automation part. But right now, it's all manual. So people walk in the warehouse with, technology, could be terminals, mobile phones, whatever, and they get the orders directly from the app. So if I'm a 20-year-old Japanese dude sitting at home in the evening and I want to order a couple of items, I go into the Uber app, place in the order, immediately drops down, connected to the warehouse execution system in a real-time API, pushes this down to the floor, packs the order, and then ships out. The drivers are waiting outside, picking it up, delivering it to the customer. So not really, not rocket science, not too complex, but a classic example of how a company like Uber that has the infrastructure of the delivery and the understanding of the customer needs where it pertains to a service level and meeting their expectations on the delivery time, leverage that, use technology, build up those micro-fulfillment centers, and start, competing against grocery retailers or any other retailer. By the way, just a side note here, the first one was 5,000 square feet. The other one, the following were 15,000, 20,000. Now they are building now a network. They started the first site, just to give you a sense. The first site was up and running within 8 weeks. When we started the project, up and running 8 weeks, there was already a system in place with a facility up and running. And then every 3-4 weeks, they add another one and another one. Right now, I think they're running about 6 sites. The plan in the next 2-3 months is to set up to 10 sites only in Tokyo. They're moving there and then after into Taiwan. Plans to expand to Europe and, of course, to also get to the US. So, this is a cool example of a micro-fulfillment strategy that was implemented with a brand that we all know and really understand the need for the technology behind the scenes to drive all that. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.